doubts that go much more in depth related to your profile, you guys can have that cleared. Do take our 1:1 consultation. It's absolutely free, and if you have any profile specific questions that you want, you can ask it over there. For the live stream, for those who are watching on live stream, you can join the stream, or you can join our event link, or also you can just put your questions on the chat, and then that will be forwarded over here. We'll just wait 2 more minutes. Ashta, you can just wait here for until the presentation is over. If you need a one-on-one consultation for help in CSU, or you could do a PC booking. You can fill out the form that is there. Someone will reach out to you ASAP. That is also possible. Okay, Rajal, I think we should start now, and people will keep continuing.
Okay, great. So hi everyone. I'm Rajal. I'm an advisor at Yocket, specifically working on the GRE preparation. So today's session also we are looking at that part of the entire application process, taking your test, specifically the GRE, why you should take it, what is included on that test, and how to prepare well for it. So, yeah, the title of today's event is Tools to Get a High GRE Score. And one thing I like to do when we start off the events is to learn from you guys first of all, what intake are you planning for? Are you planning for the 2025 intake? If you are, can you just raise your hands right now? So we can see those of you who are planning for 2025 intake. Okay, great. I do see a few of you have raised your hands. Is there anyone who is still planning for 2024 intake? It's a bit, it's close to the end of the deadlines, but we do have a few of those late takers. So I was just curious if anyone is still planning for 2024, or we mostly have a 2025 audience and onwards. Okay, great. So it seems like everyone seems to be in 2025 intake or later. So the second question I do have is, since you guys have joined this event, I assume either you're here to figure out if you need to take the GRE, or if you are planning to take the GRE, you just want some insights on how to get started, what you need to be looking at, things like that. So for those of you who have some idea, do you have score that you're aiming for on the GRE? If you can drop a message in the chat, I'd love to hear from you guys what score you're targeting for the GRE. And for those of you who aren't sure what the scoring system is, don't worry, we'll get to that later on in the presentation also. But for those of you who do have some insights, you can drop in your expected scores that you're aiming for. No one has any target scores right now? 315 plus. Okay, that's a good start. That's a good number to get to. We will I'll share in a couple of slides also what types of scores you should be targeting, and how that can impact your acceptance into universities. So I'll keep that 315 in mind also. Okay, let's get started with the presentation. And again, guys, if throughout the session there are any questions, you can drop them in the chat, and we'll pick them up throughout the session. So yeah, the topic for today is tools to get a high GRE score with Yocket. Now, for those of you who are new to Yocket, it's a platform to help you with your end to end for your study abroad application and process. So along with, though today we're focusing on GRE preparation, we also do provide counseling, premium counseling for students. So just generally about Yocket, if you want to learn more about us and how we offer help to students, you can again reach out to us, and we can set up those one-on-one calls that'll be available at the end of the session also. So, welcome everyone to the presentation today. We'll be discussing the significance and structure of the GRE. The GRE is a standardized test that's used by a lot of graduate schools and business programs to help evaluate applicants' readiness for advanced studies, right? So, understanding why the test is important, if you need to be taking it, becoming familiar with the format and structure of the test is a crucial part of both deciding if you want to go ahead with the GRE and preparing correctly for it. So it can help you better manage your time, focus your efforts on the areas where they need the most improvement. So let's start off by talking about the significance of the GRE. So I've listed down a couple of points. We'll go through them point by point on the slide. First of all, and the most obvious one, is graduate program admission. So for many universities and colleges, especially those in the US, but increasingly in other countries also, they require a GRE score as part of the application process for various graduate programs that they have. And these programs can range from master's degrees to doctoral programs in fields including engineering, social science, humanities, business. So it covers pretty much any of those masters that you guys are aiming for. It is a requirement by a lot of universities. So that's one of the most obvious significance of the exam is that it is something that is going to be have to be part of your application process. Second is standardized evaluation. So the GRE does provide a standardized a way for institutions to assess and compare applicants. Now, this is especially important because students are coming from such diverse educational, cultural backgrounds and institutions. So the scores offer a common metric for universities to evaluate academic readiness across applicants across the world, right? For the programs you're applying for, there are thousands of other students applying from across the globe, and how your scoring has been in your college cannot easily be compared to maybe how someone's scoring happened in Europe or how their grades were in the US. So the reason the GRE was created was to help universities with a standardized way in which they can compare applicants. So that's a very important reason why it was added into the framework of the application process. Third is the global acceptance. So the GRE is widely accepted by institutions worldwide. This means that if you are considering studying abroad, taking the GRE can provide, again, a standardized benchmark for you for admissions, but regardless of the country that you're applying to, meaning you could be applying to many universities, and it doesn't have to be stuck to just one country. Or if you're applying to the US, doesn't mean you can't also apply to the UK or Germany. And the GRE is accepted globally. So that's that advantage that the GRE has over some of the other tests that are out there. Fourth is scholarship opportunities. So many universities and external organizations offer scholarships, grants, financial aids to students based on their scores. So a strong GRE score can make you a more competitive candidate for these types of opportunities. Of course, reducing that financial burden that comes on your education, because going for study abroad is not an inexpensive thing, right? It's something that does cost a bit of money. So trying your best for getting those scholarships, grants is something that you should definitely consider and look into. So even for these scholarship opportunities, a lot of students do come to us saying, "Oh, maybe one of these universities I am applying to doesn't require a GRE. Should I take it? And these are the cases where even if it's not necessarily required by two or three universities you're looking at, it's still something that can help you in other parts of your applicants for application. One being scholarship opportunities, helping you reduce that financial burden. Secondly, is improving your overall profile, which we'll get to in a couple of points. And also, not limiting yourself to university options based on the fact that the GRE is not required. Most top universities do require the GRE. And if you are applying for study abroad, you shouldn't just apply for mediocre universities. You should be trying to apply for the best and giving it your best shot. The fifth point is program flexibility, right? So the GRE opens up a broad spectrum of graduate programs, meaning it's not limited to a specific field. This flexibility is again very valuable if you're not yet certain about your academic path, or if you're considering some interdisciplinary programs. Sixth is the long term validity. So the GRE score is valid for 5 years. This means you can take the test while you have some more time available to you. Even if you don't plan to immediately apply for graduate school, maybe you're planning to apply for 2025 and take even up to 2026, 2027. If right now you find that you do have the time to take it, then you can go ahead and take it. You don't have to do it under that time crunch and get that good score, and it's valid for 5 years, so you have that flexibility available to you. Preparation for advanced studies. So, the process of preparing for the GRE involves honing skills that are crucial for doing well in graduate studies. This includes things like critical thinking, analytical writing, and problem solving. So, even these skills are really transferable into these programs when you go ahead with it. So, while you're preparing for the GRE, it's not just that, oh, I have to learn all of this for this test, and then once the test is over, this is all going to be useless to me. You're actually learning a lot of skills that are going to help you do well in your programs going forward. Holistic application, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but in certain cases where some components of your application maybe aren't fully representing your potential, maybe are a little bit weak, your GPA in college or other parts of your application are just lacking slightly, a strong GRE score can make a significant difference to your application. It showcases your ability to perform well on a very tough standardized test, which can help supplement your entire application package. So again, for those cases where students are asking, oh, is the GRE required? Do I need to take it? It really helps boost your profile. Of course, you need to be aiming for a good score, and we'll discuss on the next slide what a good score is. But getting that score and adding it to your application really, pushes up your whole profile. Eighth is the ninth is the comparative advantage. So again, a competitive GRE score can help set you apart in a pool of applicants, especially if you're applying for those highly selective programs. It helps make a really strong first impression and catch the eye of admission committees quickly. Now, the admissions committees don't spend more than a couple of minutes per application in the beginning till you passed those initial rounds. So, making sure you have that eye catching profile is very important. And with thousands of applicants, there are going to be a lot of people who have similar ish profiles to you. So, having a competitive score can really help again set you apart from those other pool of applicants that have similar profiles, similar grades, similar backgrounds to you. Overall, the GRE provides an objective measure to compare applicants from different backgrounds, and it's accepted by thousands of graduate programs and business schools worldwide. Almost all the top universities in the US, the UK, Australia, and across Europe accept the GRE as part of their admissions applications. So it is a very vital and important part of your application process. Does anyone have any questions about this? You can drop your messages in the chat. I'm not able to see the messages. Can someone just check on that from the Yocket front, please? If not, you can just drop it to me separately and I'll answer those from there. Any questions from anyone about what the importance of GRE is, if you should be taking it, anything as such? Okay, then we can.
Rajal, sorry, just to interrupt, there's one question. Is GRE important for architecture courses?
For these more specific questions, so for your profile specifically, we will have one-on-one consultations at the end of this session. So specifically for these, generally it's accepted by all masters that you're going forward with. But if you want specifically for architecture and specific colleges that you're looking at, you can connect with one of our counselors at the end of the session on in a one-on-one meet, and they can give you a bit more insights specific to your profile.
Thanks, Rajal. And there's one more. Is Someone asked if home-based GRE is accepted in the US.
So yeah, home based is a option that's available, but the thing is, not all universities accept the home based test. It was created and launched because of COVID, right? So now that that is no longer a big issue, especially in India and across the globe. There are some universities that no longer accept the home based test. So I would advise students to take the test at a official site rather than doing it at home, since there are uh, sites available across India, which you can check on the ETS website directly, and pick one of those locations and go there in person rather than doing it from at home, since it could limit some of your university options. I did manage to see one question. How difficult is the GRE? How long will it take to prepare for a good score? And what is a good score? So I'll go on to the next slide where we'll talk about what a good score is. In terms of the difficulty and how long it takes to prepare for a good score, on average, students do require about 3 months to prepare well for the GRE exam. But this does depend and vary a lot depending on your skill level to start off with, right? If you are already really good at math, really good at English, you can pick things up a lot quicker. Whereas for other students who are maybe a lot weaker in English, it'll take a bit more time to, really hone and get better at those skills. I saw a message that you're unable to hear me. Some student has said, can the rest of you hear me? Can you just put your hand up if you can hear me? Okay, I've seen a couple of hands. So I think I am audible. So I think the issue was on the student side. Anyway, I'll carry on. Let's talk about the scoring. Okay. So let's first look at a glimpse of GRE score takers in India. Now, let's just start off with the total score. So, on average, students in India get a score of 309. Uh, let's compare that to the competitive score for top universities. That is 324. Now, for those of you who aren't yet aware of the scoring system, this doesn't seem too bad, right? 309 versus 324, and the overall score is out of 340. Not bad at all. But something that's very important to keep in mind is what is the minimum score you can get on the GRE. It's not zero. The minimum score you can get on the GRE is 260. So that means your range is, you only have an 80-point range you're working with. Now, if you think about that, the difference between 309 and 324 become a lot bigger, right? That means that out of those 80 points, you've scored how much less? 15 points less, which is a massive difference. Now, if we break this up a little further, if we look at just the verbal score and what I've shared on the screen, in verbal reasoning, the average score for an Indian student is 149, and the average score for a average competitive score for top universities is 158. Now, again, this barely seems like a difference, right? It's a 9-point difference, doesn't seem too much out of 170, not bad. But again, now if we look at the percentile, what percentile are you hitting? With a 149 score, you're only hitting the 38th percentile, whereas a 158 score is a 80th percentile. So a 10-point difference, but it's a very big difference in terms of how you're scoring compared to the rest of the globe. I'm pulling up this slide to really bring into perspective what a good score is. For a lot of students, they just say, oh, I got above a 300. That sounds great. But it's really important you keep in mind the lowest score you can get is a 260, the highest is a 340. So what you should be aiming for is what we've mentioned at the bottom about the 80th percentile. Basically, what we suggest students should be aiming for is a 320 plus score to have a very competitive, good GRE score that can get you into those top ranking universities. I hope that's clear for the student who'd asked the question in the chat also what a good score is. So 320 plus is the score that you should be aiming for, that we tell students they should be targeting also. If you are planning to go for study abroad and put that type of money into your education, this is the type of score you should be aiming for to really get into those top universities. uh, Again, now let's go a little bit more into the structure of the test. And again, guys, if you have any questions throughout the session, please drop them in the chat, and me or my colleagues will make sure we get to them throughout the session. uh, Also, make sure that you do stay till the end of the session if you want to get into those one-on-one sessions with our Yocket counselors. These are free sessions. And overall, we at Yocket do help with offering GRE preparation and counseling services for top universities to help you with scholarships. Also, we basically are an end-to-end package to help you with your whole study abroad process. So getting back into the slides, let's look at the structure of the GRE exam. So I just wanted to highlight that the GRE test has changed in the last couple of months. Until September of this past year, the exam format was a little bit different and a little bit longer. It was a 3-hour, 45-minute exam. As of 20th September, it has been reduced to a 1-hour, 58-minute exam. A lot of students ask if the older option is still available. It is not. You can only take the shorter version of the exam now. And we'll break down again what the components are and how it has changed from the earlier format. So there are three main sections of the test: the analytical writing, which is your essay writing portion, quantitative reasoning, which is the quant math section, and verbal reasoning, which is the English verbal section. What In the analytical writing, it used to be a 60-minute session where you had two essays given. That has now been reduced to one essay for which you have 30 minutes. For quant and verbal, the sections used to have 40 questions. Those have now been reduced to 27 questions, with the average amount of time per question remaining the same. And what there used to be an unscored section in the test which has been removed, as well as a scheduled break that has been removed. The scheduled break used to come at the 2-hour mark in the older exam. Now that the entire exam is less than 2 hours, there's no longer a scheduled break in the test. So overall, the exam duration has dropped by almost half, from nearly 4 hours to just under 2 hours. And in addition to the change in the format, your official scores are also delivered faster to you. So rather than taking 10 to 15 calendar days, you will receive your scores in 8 to 10 calendar days. So you receive your scores faster also for you to send off to universities. Now, how is the test broken up? So there is in the analytical writing, there is one essay, the analyze an issue essay or task, for which you have 30 minutes. And then in quant and verbal, it's divided into two sections. You have your first section of 12 questions and your second section of 15 questions. In the quant section, you get about 1 minute 45 seconds per question on average, and in the verbal, it's 1 minute 30 uh, seconds. And the reason there are two sections in quant and verbal, and this is something that everyone should really keep in mind, is the GRE test is section level adaptive. The first section of your quant and verbal reasoning sections has an average level of difficulty, and based on how you perform on your first section, meaning those first 12 questions, the difficulty level of your second section will be adapted. So you will either remain at, again, an average difficulty level. If you've done really well in your first section, you would be moved up to a higher difficulty level. And if you've not performed as well, you would move down to a lower difficulty level. This section level adaptive has a big impact on your score, which we'll actually discuss in the next slide, how it impacts your scoring. So even though totally in the quant section, there are only 27 questions, and if you score 20 out of 27, you think, okay, this should be my score. But it's very important to know where you're scoring those questions right. Are you scoring more questions right in the first section or second section? So let's discuss that in a little bit more detail. First, let me just uh, review the scoring. So analytical writing is out of 6, and you can get a score from 0 to 6 in half point increments, meaning you can score 4.55, 5.56. This section is not adaptive and is graded by trained human raters. So this is not scored by a computer, but by a human, trained human raters. The quant and verbal section has a range from 130 to 170, and your points can increase in 1 point increments, meaning in the quant section you can get a 150, a 151, a 152. You can't get a point 0.5 or such. It would only be in 1 points, and the overall scores are then combined to produce your final total score that we had discussed earlier, ranging from 260 to 340. Now, what I had mentioned just a few minutes ago about the total number of correct questions you're getting right across the two sections, right? So in quant, there are 27 questions, but it's broken down into 12 questions in the first section and 15 questions in the second. So looking at your combined score will not give you a precise idea of your actual score. So, for instance, if you got half the questions correct out of the 27 questions in the verbal across the two verbal sections, your score can range anywhere between 147 to 155. That's a 8 point range, right? And as we discussed earlier, every point is very crucial in the GRE exam. Scoring a 308 versus a 322 has a massive difference. So it all depends on the section in which you're getting most of your questions correct. You should really focus on getting as many questions correct in that first section as possible to get a high score. Now, again, if we take the verbal section as an example, if you score 12 out of 12 in the first section of verbal, and then you score 0 out of 15 in the second section, that meaning you got everything wrong in the second section, you'll get a verbal score of 155. If we now switch that around, meaning you get everything wrong in your first section of verbal, and then you get 15 out of 15 correct in your second section of verbal, you'll only get a 147. This is what I'm trying to emphasize over here, is how crucial that section 1 is. The reason why the score was lower in my second example, when you got everything wrong in the first section and everything right in the second section, is because of that adaptive algorithm that is there in the GRE, where it is section level adaptive. So because you didn't score anything right in the first section, you were shifted to a lower difficulty level in the second section. So even though you got 20 out of 20 in that section, the level of difficulty isn't as high as the questions that were there in the first section. Similarly, if you get 20 out of 20 in the first section, that means you've already done very well in that average difficulty level, and then you were shifted into a higher difficulty level, and then you scored 0 out of 20 in that section. But because you'd already done better in those average difficulty level questions, your score is already improved compared to the other one. It's improved by 8 points. This is a bit of a confusing thing that I tend to get a lot of questions about. So if you have any questions about that, please drop them in the chat box. I'll just go and check if there are any questions in the chat box. Again, I can't see them. So if someone from Yocket can just advise me on any questions that have come in the last couple of slides. I did see one question. How is the minimum score always above 260? That's just the standard way the GRE is calculated. So even if you score everything wrong on the quant section or the verbal section, if as you can see, the your score range is only 130 to 170. So if you score a 0, that's the equivalent of scoring a 130. So 260 combined quant and verbal means you've basically scored 0 on the whole GRE test. That's just the base value that they've used as part of their calculation process. Uh, yeah. Any other questions? Not sure why I'm not able to see them directly. What is a good score for analytical writing? What is the use of this section if it's not taken into account for the final score? So that's a good question, Ashia. I will get into that in a couple of slides in a bit more detail. But a good score for the analytical writing, what we tell students is aim for a 4 or higher. It doesn't really matter if you get a 5.5, if you get a 6, but you should at least get a 4 or higher. While it isn't taken into account as part of your separate 340 score, the combined quant and verbal score, and that is the score that generally, even when you're hearing about the GRE, even if you're asking students about it, they're always like, oh, what was your score in the GRE? Out of 340, I got a 312, I got a 315. That doesn't mean you shouldn't put your efforts into the analytical writing section also. It's not important necessarily in terms of how high you score in that section, but they want to just confirm that you have uh, enough skill to be able to write these essays and put across your arguments in a cohesive and clear manner, which is why I emphasize that for that section it's more important that you target a 4 or higher. Any university will accept that. They don't care if you get a 5.5, if you get a 6 in that section, just that you get that passing amount, that basically 4 would be that passing amount, that okay, they know how to write their essays and that's good enough. So that's what you should be aiming for in that section. Any more questions? I think I'm able to see the questions if you guys drop them directly to me on the chat. So you can send them to Rajal on the chat and I'll be able to see them and answer them. In the meantime, I'll get back to the slides. So let's dive a little bit into the different sections of the test, starting off with the quant reasoning section. So the questions in this section include multiple choice and numeric entry questions. Multiple choice questions require students to select one correct answer amongst the answer choices that are available. And the numeric entry questions require students to enter or type in the answer as a numeric value. The questions in this section are designed to test your knowledge on arithmetics, algebra, geometry, data analysis, with topics covering things like number properties, fractions, ratios, percentages, equations, geometry, and statistics. Generally, what we say is the theory aspect of the quant reasoning section is covering your high school maths. You don't need to learn beyond that. The topics are things you have learned in high school. It's just about brushing up your skills in that. And then, of course, the other skills that come into the quant reasoning section is making sure you're reading the questions correctly and attempting the problems in a quick and smart way. So, to perform well in the quant reasoning section, students should practice these mathematical concepts, brush up on those that theory, and work on problem solving techniques, developing strategies to answer different types of questions, and familiarizing yourself with those mental calculations that you need to do throughout the session. You should also practice time management. In the quant section, you get an average of 1 minute 45 seconds to answer each question. And generally, if you are trying to aim for a higher score, what we had discussed in the previous slide, moving to that higher difficulty level of section 2, right? So if you get at least 75% of questions correct in your section 1, then the algorithm will adapt to the higher difficulty level for the second section. If you get between 50 to 75% correct in section 1, the level of the next section will remain the same. And if you get anything less than 50% in section 1, the test will adapt to a lower difficulty level for that section. So, this is again something to just keep in mind. General tips for the quant section: first is train your brain for mental calculations. Now, a calculator is available to you, it will be a digital form of a calculator on your desktop, and that is available to you, but you shouldn't be heavily reliant on it. There are a lot of calculations that are very basic that you can do in your mind. It saves you a lot more time. And we do also see that if students are too heavily reliant on calculators for even small sums, fractions, things like that, it can it can lead to a lot of error because you're also working quickly. So typing in those numbers, making sure you're typing it in correctly, tends to lead to a lot more errors. So really make sure you're training your brain for mental calculations and learning those concepts. Second is skimming the questions. One thing that's good to do is to skim through the quant section to get an idea of the different types of questions and their difficulty level. Identify questions that appear to be particularly challenging or time consuming. So you know you have to dedicate more time to those and you need to save your time in some other questions. Third is use estimations. So, in some cases, you may not need to solve a question fully. Estimations are a powerful tool to quickly eliminate unrealistic answer choices and identify the closest approximation to the correct answer. So, reserve this strategy for questions where precise calculations are time consuming and the answer choices are distinct enough that as long as you come to a roundabout answer, you'll be able to tell which of your answer choices you can, and should select. Another point that's not mentioned but connects with using estimations is sometimes plugging in your answer choices. For every question, you don't always have to work forward, you can work backwards also. Sometimes, rather than trying to look at the problem and solve it from the problem to the solution, you do have five solution options available to you. So plugging them into the formula can be a quicker process than the other way around. So knowing when to use which of these strategies is again a very important part of working quickly and doing well on the exam. Fourth is a pretty obvious one, but not sometimes students don't know this, and this applies to both the quant and verbal section. Leave no question unanswered. This is both again in quant and verbal. There is no such thing as negative marking. So even if you get a question wrong, you will not. No points will be deducted from you. So it's better to put a your best estimation, your best guesstimation in, cancel out a few obvious choices that the answer can't be, and limit your options and try to put your best guess in, because there's no harm in doing so. And fifth is prioritizing easier questions. If you have a question that's straightforward, solve it quickly, answer it immediately, and move forward. Save your time for those challenging questions. Even though I highlighted that you have a minute 45 seconds per question on average, there will be some questions where you will maybe need 3 to 4 minutes. So it's important that when you go get through get those easier questions, work through them quickly, efficiently, and move forward, because you'll need to save your time for those tougher questions. Okay, I'll just quickly go through the verbal section, and then we can wrap this up. So, coming to the verbal reasoning section, some general tips are: make reading a daily habit. This is a pretty obvious one since the passages are quite long and they're very tough to read. So making reading a daily habit can help you with that. Skimming longer passages to get through the main points and structures before you attempt the questions. This again can save some time and allow you to answer the questions accurately. Utilizing the process of elimination, specifically for text completion and sentence equivalent questions. You can use this method to eliminate unlikely answer choices and narrow down your options. And this will again help you with making informed guesses when you're unsure about your options. Finally, you have fill in the blank yourself. And this is again for text completion and sentence equivalent questions. Try to fill in those blanks before you look at the answer choices, so that you're not biased by the answer choices that are provided to you. And an obvious one is number 6, which is a very important one: build your vocabulary. This will help you with both the verbal and analytical writing sections. So make sure you're focusing on that. That's not a one day thing. You'll need to put a couple of months into that, building your vocabulary specifically for the GRE. And yeah, finally, the analytical writing section. It's just the issue task in which students are presented with a general topic or statement, and you have to write an essay in response. You have 30 minutes to complete that. The AWA section is not adaptive, and to perform well in the section, you should practice writing clear and effective essays, developing strategies for analyzing and evaluating arguments, and learn how to support your position with relevant evidence. So those are the main points from our end covering the overall topics. Now we do have GRE preparation as part of Yocket, as well as our counseling services. It's all part of the same package. As we mentioned, we help you with end-to-end preparation. So if you do want to, begin your GRE preparation, you can head over to Yocket and get in touch with your counselor who can help you more with that. Um, I'll open the floor now to any questions from your guys' end.
Thanks, Rajal, for that amazing session. Yeah. So people will start asking questions now. Also, you guys will be redirected to breakout rooms wherein you'll be able to have one-on-one advice and one-on-one counseling for your study abroad goals. Meanwhile, you guys can, while you're waiting, you guys can shoot your questions here, and anything related to GRE, Rajal will be able to take it up.
Could you quickly run through the slides just to revise them?
Uh,
Just to
is there
show.
a specific
Yeah.
slide you
Yeah, just to run through them so that we could take screenshots or whatever for later reference.
we I can just quickly summarize the slides. So first we just discussed the main reasons for uh the importance of the GRE, and these were the 9 points that we had identified. After that, the structure, what it used to be, and what it currently is in the new format of the test. So, again, if you need to look at that, you can head over to the Yocket website. Also, we have blogs covering all of this information. Also, you don't have to take it screenshots of the slides. All this information is available there. How the section breakup is. So within quant, verbal, and the analytical writing section, as well as the point breakup between those sections, with the overall score being out of 340 and separately the analytical writing score being out of 6. And then, yeah, the main tips for quant, again, a bit more detail for these can be found on our blogs on Yocket and Yocket Prep. So if you want more in-depth summaries of these tips and more tips, you can just head over to the website. So these were some for quant, some of the ones that we would suggest for verbal. Any more questions?
Guys, you guys will be redirected to one-on-one breakout rooms wherein you can ask questions, very specific questions to your profile in detail. Meanwhile, anyone here or on the stream can ask questions through chat.
Rohit, all the students just got assigned.
Okay, all the students have got assigned, right? We
Yes.
have some in the stream as well. Just let me check if they have any questions. Okay, I think we are good. So all the students have got assigned, and those who are in the stream also, thank you for watching. If you wish to have one-to-one sessions, there'll be a link where you can book a personal consultation on the option.
Okay, thank you everyone from my
Okay,
end.
thanks, Rajal. Yeah, thank you, Rajal. Yeah.
Thanks.